The following content reflects the personal opinions and perspectives of the hosts. These views do not necessarily represent those of their employers.
Good afternoon and welcome to episode 8 of the Blue Sky Business Acquisitions podcast. This is our buyer interview podcast. And today's podcast is brought to us by Strategic Wealth Partners. They're independent wealth managers managing complexity, diversifying simplicity. Their main objective is to provide you with successful wealth strategies, independent advice, and personalized services you deserve. Joe and Ruben, we sure do appreciate your sponsorship.
All right. Today we have on the podcast Bryan Cartwright joining us from Reset Technologies. Bryan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Happy to be on.
So I got to throw this out to you as we get ready to roll into this. What did you think about last night's NFL game? Did you think that the Cowboys were going to hold tight and take the Phillies all the way to the end, or did you expect a blowout by Philadelphia?
I expected a blowout by Philadelphia. They looked good early. I have Jalen Hurts on my fantasy team. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, so I was feeling good about the game. But Dallas kind of held tight. I was surprised that their defense held up pretty well. I thought they'd miss Micah Parsons a little bit more, and maybe that was evened out since Philly's best defender got kicked out in the first 4 seconds of the game. So
he sure did.
Yeah. So I was really
crazy.
excited to watch the game and have football kick back off. It's one of my favorite times of the year.
Yeah, good sportsmanship there by
Yeah. Was his name Carter? Jalen Carter.
Yeah, Jalen Carter.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard because you mix them up because you got Jalen Hurt and you got Jalen Carter in the game, right?
Yeah.
So it's like they put the hurt on Carter, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're kind of at opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to professionalism, but
Yeah. So all right, we're getting into the tail end of baseball season, and you got the Philadelphia Phillies near the top, right? And you got the Brewers and Cubs. What is your bold prediction for the World Series out of the National League and American League? What are you thinking?
Well, I can honestly say I pay less attention to the National League. I was just in Arizona last week, and we came this close to going to a Diamondbacks game, and but it was a little late. I have young kids, so we didn't think that they would make it through. But I heard you can get really close, and that it's like an awesome experience because it's so hot. It was quite hot. On the American League side, so I guess on the National League side, the only team that I see play consistently are the Mets, and I feel like they're a little bit frisky. I saw them beat the Phillies a few times, maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. They seem to make like pretty quick work of them. So even though I'm not a Mets fan, I'll go New York. I'll go New York Mets in the National League. From the American League standpoint, like it's hard, like my Yankees were just at the top of the AL East for a while, and they've just kind of nosedived. They're inconsistent. They go up, they lose 5, and then they win 4, and then but in the meantime, the Blue Jays have been kind of streaking. So as a homer, I can't go against my Yankees. I think that we'll get the wild card. I think we're the class of the American League, and like if our pitching holds up, that we'll be able to get to the World Series for a second year in a row. So I'm calling it a Subway Series.
All right, so there you have it, folks. Steinbrenner is the prediction here with the Yankees. Before we go into talking about your recent acquisition of Reset Technologies, right? Let's talk pizza, right? Now, you live in the Big Apple where they have New York pizza. Matt, Tom, and I live near Chicago and Milwaukee where deep dish and tavern pizza is. And then there's a little known place down the river from Chicago called Quad Cities that makes their own style pizza. So, Bryan, if we had to ask you, New York, Chicago, or Quad Cities? Where are you going?
Well, and maybe I'm biased, but here's the thing. Like when I hear about pizza from different parts of the country, I don't hear New York pizza. I hear pizza in New York, and then everywhere else has to be like qualified. So it's like Chicago pizza, Quad Cities pizza. So of course I'll go New York pizza because that's what I kind of grew up with. But if there was a close second, um, for my birthday growing up, there used to be a like I grew up in Manhattan, and there used to be like this pizzeria Uno, and I loved it so much. I loved their little deep dish Chicago pizza, and on that day of the year, the place that I wanted to go most had Chicago pizza. So like Chicago gets the win here.
Wow, there you have it, folks. The New
Nice.
York guy with the Chicago win. Big endorsement there. Well, hey, switching
I'll
into
have to try Quad Cities at some point. I've never seen
yeah,
that.
maybe one day when you're flying to Chicago, I'll take you down and we'll get some Harris pizza and get some taco and uh, some fennel
It's
sausage
good.
pizza.
That's
I
good.
personally had
It's
Tom
good.
Flanagan come back from Iowa with me, and I made him go to the Quad Cities to get the pizza. So,
Love it. Come
all
here.
right. So, Brian, you recently did an acquisition about is it just over a year ago? You acquired a health app called Reset Technologies, uh, and wanted to today invite you on the podcast to kind of get get your view of the overall process, how you went about acquiring the business, selecting the business, right? So I'm going to turn the floor over to you to kind of just uh, have you go through a day in the life of someone acquiring a business.
Uh, it's quite the journey. You know, I acquired in December of last year, so it's been about coming up on 9 months. And like I had actually been searching for about 2 years, probably a little bit more before I finally closed on this deal. And it's difficult. It's a difficult process. There's a lot of variables that go into play in order to actually get a deal done. And from my perspective, like most buyers like me, like I was a self-funded buyer, like and this is my opinion, like I feel like we're at the bottom rung of what like who sellers actually want to sell to. Like they'd rather someone with a ton of money, a lot of investment experience, oftentimes. So when we come into a room, like first you have to you have to sell the broker on the deal. You have to sell the bank that you're the right person for the deal. You have to sell and then most importantly, you have to sell the seller that you're the right person that will not only take over the company that they put their blood, sweat, and tears into, but will keep the people who work there safe, and like make sure that things keep running on schedule, and that the company is on the up and up. So it was quite the journey, and proceeding buying or even getting into the experience. It kind of started like I was working in big tech for probably about 10 years, and it's a competitive space, and I don't mind competition, but I didn't have full control over the things that I would be working on. And so like between competition and not having control, I didn't see myself doing that for the next 25 or so years before I would have to retire. So I talked to my wife. Initially, like I wanted to start a business myself. I didn't have a great idea. And then I got introduced to the world of Twitter at the time, and searchers on there, and I did a bunch of learning about like buying businesses. Like that's where it kind of started. And then I took the acquisition lab with Walker Dybel from Chelsea Wood, and they teach you a lot of the beats of what sellers are looking for, how to approach a deal, how to sell yourself, like what to be prepared for. And I don't even think he told I told him this, but like on one of our initial calls with Walker Dybel, like you do a introduction, right? And I told him my background, and I told him what I was kind of going for, and he said something kind of off the cuff, like, I feel like you're gonna get it. I feel like you're gonna buy a business. And it was, he will probably never remember it. There's been lots of cohorts since, but it gave me confidence because I wasn't sure if I was able, if I had what it took to actually get it done. So fast forward a couple of years and a few dead deals, which I'm sure we can get into. I came across Reset, which is a weight loss app that's based on meal planning in order to kind of get your metabolic health, your metabolic systems in order, right? So I came across this app, and what I saw in it that drew me to it was that it had thousands of users in its history. It had a steady growth curve. It was like the owner wasn't like I even though I worked in big tech, I was never an engineer. So it was a technology company. I was always wary of buying from engineers because like they'd often say, oh, like I don't really do much, but at the end of the day, they can go in and program, write some code. I didn't want that to be like an issue. So like the owner was an operations person, just like me. So and he was from San Francisco, where my wife's from. There was a lot of synergy. We went to similar schools on the East Coast. So like there was and he was young. He was younger than I. He was probably about 10 years younger than me. So there was a lot. There was a lot that we connected on, and I loved the health space. Like I'll get a little personal with it, but like my mom, who I lost about 3 years ago, she was super. She was a vegan, super healthy, and was always talking about like the energy that comes from food, right? And so like, when I came across Reset, which is a meal planning app, I was like, oh, like wow, it reminded me of my mom. I was like, my mom would love this company, and that's what kind of started the affair, um, and we went under LOI and had a long, probably was a 9 month like before between signing the LOI and actually closing, with a lot of kind of ups and downs, but it was quite the journey, and I couldn't be happier that Reset is the business that I actually did end up acquiring.
So you found it, right? How did you go about finding like your due diligence team? Like,
Mm.
how did you build that team?
Hmm. So I guess this ties back to some of the dead deals that I've had actually. Like I met Matt originally on like I was trying to close it was a big deal. It was maybe like a $12 million education services company. It was
Yep.
based here in that was based here in New York. And the issue with it was that like because of like the COVID years, like the COVID years had made like the revenue sink to like really, really low numbers. And then once folks got back in school, like the numbers jumped back up. But that was a scary proposition for banks and investors. Like they wanted to know, like, is this something that can happen again? And for such a large deal that was a little bit outside of the scope of what most SBA banks will support without like a pari passu and so on and so forth. Um, like long story short, it didn't end up closing, but I had met Matt there, and and Matt was then like a real resource for me whenever I found other deals. I knew that like with Matt with his finance background, I could run it by him. have him like kind of give me like ask him to give me like his 2 cents on a deal, whether it could work or not. So he ended up like when I went under LOI for another deal, introducing me to Ben, who is, you know, like who was just wonderful at sussing out like a deal very quickly. And so like even though you weren't like part of my like exact deal team per se, you became like this kind of this part of like some trusted folks who I could turn to get like insights early on to put me to have me go one direction or another. So to go back to the deal, to go back to the education deal, like part of the issue that investors had in that deal, or like the investor group that I was working with, was that they didn't love the QOV that was provided. They thought it lacked a little bit of professionalism, and for a deal that big, that like we really had to have our P's and Q's. So like Ben actually ended up introducing me to Chris Barrett at Midwest CPA, who still is like my accountant now at Reset.
I almost wore his t-shirt today. So
Chris is a wonderful guy and someone who I turn to quite a bit. And so I started working with him, and yeah, we had a deal that fell apart together. But like over time, it's like you're creating these relationships, and I hate to have like folks go through dead deals, but like if you're coming at people above board, being honest and being forthcoming with what you're trying to do, like I have seen that like that folks in the industry will help you out. And that's what I found with Matt and Ben, and you know, like I've met Tom to a smaller extent, but there's always this like helpful environment that I had around. So then I was introduced. After I was introduced to Chris, I had been like I had had a couple of attorneys who I'd worked with who were hourly, and for whatever reason, like I just have like an aversion to like paying hourly rates for things that I can't see. Right, like it's like it doesn't feel right for me. So long story short, like I ended up working with a wonderful attorney who I actually call a friend now, Ellie Albrecht. Like he has his own firm now. At the time, like he was at this law firm, SMB Law. That's where we initially met, and Ellie also like is like the attorney who I would call if there's anything kind of going on in the company now. So like that's kind of how I met my deal team, and you know, we've kind of all stayed together afterward.
So Bryan, like you found the company you want to buy, right? How did you
Mhm.
prepare your family, like your wife and
ooh,
kids,
good
for this
question.
journey that you're about to take?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Like my kids, I have a 6-year-old and 4-year-old. So like even now, like my wife works at a large kind of retail company, and they know the company she works at. Like they have a bunch of clothes from there. Like they know that. But like what dad does is a little bit more confusing to them. They're like, wait, so like what business do you own? Like what do you do? So I don't think so. Even at the time, they've never had like a clear understanding of the process that I was going through. My wife, on the other hand, was a little bit more. I wouldn't even say a difficult sell, because it wasn't, but it was a little bit uncomfortable for her. Like she comes from a very blue collar family where like work is associated with, you know, like going in, punching in, making sure you're getting done, like, you know, like delivering and stuff like that. And here I am, like kind of at the computer all day, like talking to brokers and bankers and folks, and it's just like for 2 years no less. So it's just like when are we gonna get like the return on this investment? So like I would say it was like even with preparing before I left my job in big tech, um, it becomes like it's a difficult transition, and it's kind of a lonely one, because like I don't think I've ever worked harder, but there was really like not much to show for this day in, day out grind work that is talking to business owners, talking to brokers, reading through like sims and like financial reports. Like it's quite a bit. So yeah, so there was no like real preparation for it, but like we just talk about it all the time and have an open lane of communication, and and luckily like my group at the acquisition lab, like I always had folks who I did know who I could kind of lean on, ask questions, talk through certain things, talk through feelings. We'd have little meetups and things like that. So it ain't easy. I'll say
Bryan,
that.
I'd like to ask you, so you were in big tech. When did you decide to kind of jump out of that, and what went into that decision, right? It's like, okay, this is the route I'm gonna commit to, blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, you know, slogged up the steep hill as far as finding the right business, right? Talking to brokers, sellers, reading sims. I mean, and feeling like you're not really getting anywhere.
Hmm.
So one, what was kind of that decision? Then two, I'm sure it seems like you had kind of a wide kind of, target, not necessarily like I want to go into tech, or what
Hmm.
things sort of created did the circle just slowly kind of tighten, geographical area, right? A lot of folks are looking for a business, and then if it's not within an hour drive, then, oh, I'm out, right? So, you know, fill us in a little bit on those, on your criteria and how that changed over time. And um,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, no, like no, that's a great question, because it did change quite a bit over time,
Hmm.
and it came through trial and error. Now, initially, even though I had a background in tech, like before tech, I had a background, like I worked in education and like AmeriCorps programs, things like that. Like never as a actual teacher, but team leader, like a team leader, things of that nature, that were helping kids learn to read, write, do math. Um, so I was a little reticent to get into tech because of the high prices. Usually, like like if you have anywhere near like a business that's operating well, a lot of times like they'll get, especially if it's like some sort of SaaS area, like they'll get
Hmm.
traded on a multiple of revenue instead of EBITDA, and that's like a fast no for like most banks, you know.
Yeah.
Like, so it wasn't, so I didn't really feel like I would have much opportunity in the tech space. So I wanted to lean into education. I was like, all right, that's evergreen. I know no matter what, like there's always going to be like an education play. So I initially wanted to buy and roll up preschools here in New York. Being a New Yorker born and bred, um, I know what it's like to be in like good neighborhoods with like a school that like like a preschool that a lot of people want to get into. You get a
Hmm.
lot of wait list, you get a very consistent money, and really, to be frank, like you can have pricing control either over like the tuition prices or over how you navigate your wait list. You can, like in finance, you can get into any type of auction you want, like
Hmm.
and so I wanted to like snag one of these schools in a good area and then build from that. What I found is that particularly like it's a little bit difficult in New York City because like each school like for a preschool you have to have two egresses onto different street, two exits, and there's just not that many of those locations here in the city. And if they are here, they don't have like they're not coded for teaching kids. So like the schools that have like an established presence, like they ain't selling. Like they have they have like a lot of like great money coming in, and there were a few times where I had a couple of opportunities, but like the multiples were they were like a 6x multiples on EBITDA, and even though like I would feel kind of safe with that because I knew how sticky that those funds were, like a lot of banks didn't feel as comfortable with it.
Right.
So I ended up like opening up like the aperture after about a year, and like I had a deal fall apart like for like this group of 4 preschools that I was really excited about, and some like some strategic came in and swiped it from me. Um,
Mm.
so like so I moved on to just like opening it up, and like I looked at, I mean, don't roll your eyes, but like a construction company, like at one point, like it was like a pool construction company where they did maintenance and some like construction. And I kind of went pretty far there. That fell apart. Like I went into like a few directions, and yeah, so like I kind of had a like my criteria was based basically on like being remotely around New York. I think your like 1 hour rule is about accurate.
Mhm.
Like somewhere that I could get to from Brooklyn. I live in Brooklyn now. And ideally it would be making around a million bucks.
Mhm.
So like I'm like in New York, like that's so many businesses, but it's really tough to it's really tough to navigate through all of the way more experienced buyers, the people who are better like logistically are closer to like whatever I was trying to buy.
Right.
So yeah, so it like when I came across a company like Reset that was essentially remote, um, it opened the doors for me to really kind of lean into the skill set and area that one I had experience with, and that checked off all the boxes in terms of what it earned, its growth potential, and all of that.
And I
What?
think, Bryan, you touched on a couple of things there that ring a lot of bells with searchers and buyers. And the number one thing I've seen over the years is exactly what you just said. I've seen a lot of industries, and then I chose one that I felt a little bit more comfortable with, right? And it was remote. And so I think, that's a good lesson to searchers and buyers out there is, you know what you know. And sometimes recreating the wheel is tough.
Mhm.
So, following a path and leveling up is a good problem to have in life. And it's also a more comfortable path. So
Absolutely.
I wanted to touch on, Ben had brought up the family aspect before. And what did your wife think about buying the company? Right. And I think for all of the corporate people out there, we understand that the wake up and grind culture is a real thing, working 50, 60 hours a week, being available on weekends, right? It's intrusive into our personal lives.
Mhm.
Having left that environment and now being kind of the king of the kingdom for your own business, right? Kind of remote. How has your personal life improved or maybe not since buying the company?
It's interesting. Well, like I feel like I'm in a better place. Like there's so much anxiety about whether like this was actually going to be a path that worked out. and so much money spent, that, you know, like by the end of like the 2 year mark, I was starting I was like, all right, like I got to go back to work. Like you know, like like I've given this a go. It's not working out. Um, and so like when it finally did work out, and I finally was, like, to your point, in an area that I felt comfortable in, that I could grow in, that like the seat wasn't like some foreign seat that I feel uncomfortable in. It's just brought a sense of calm to me, which I think, you know, like resonates throughout my family in general. I will say that it's interesting with like work-life balance, you know, because for me, it was always easier to separate, like when I was working for someone, it was easier to separate like work and family. Like I think when you own something, it's way easier for those lines to get blurred, right? Like there's, like I'm thinking about like my family and my business all the time. You know, like this is what I like think about, these are the things that I care about. And they overlap. So like I mentioned before, I was just in Arizona for 9 days, and you know, like like I was taking a bunch of calls. Like we're working on a lot of development that we're trying to push out before the end of the year. And and by running like a leaner team, like there's roles that I have to play, there's emails that I have to answer, there's meetings that I have to hop on in order to help, um, kind of like I'll call it, edit what like folks are doing, so that we make sure that we're going in the direction of the vision. So yeah, so it gets dicey, you know, like again, like I think communication for me has been like really key. Like if I know like I'm gonna probably be in a bunch of meetings, like it's best I tell my wife beforehand, you know, like not just like go like hopping off on a bunch of meetings and stuff like that. Like
Go close the door behind you and don't open it
yeah,
for
like,
4 hours.
I
Yeah.
gotta go hop on a call real quick. She'd be like, wait, what? So especially just because the kids are uh like they're like it's very hands-on, I guess, at this age. So we, you know, like try to give each other breaks and make sure like when we are on vacation, that at least one of us does have some time to like kind of be on vacation without it just being childcare. So like I would say like, yeah, and overall I feel like my life has gotten like better and clearer, and my purpose is much more like clear and directed. um but yeah, there's a lot more blurring of the lines. It's like everything is kind of and of course, like I don't mean it in the sense that like I own my wife, but these are things that are like I feel like are mine, like my wife and my kids and my business, and they kind of fall into a big bowl of importance that I like lean on, and it's my life for right now, you know.
Brian, I think that's a really amazing thing that you shared there. As you think about like new buyers coming in the market, and like some of the things that you went through, what are some key pieces of advice that you would give to them as they step out there and potentially go down the road to buy their own company?
Yeah, you know, like
Work with us.
yeah.
Right.
Work with Tom and Matt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like if anyone would ever reach out to me, like that's like I would say that if you guys are here or not around, like you guys are best in class at what you do. So, um, and I say that like with my full, open, honest heart.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But like when it comes to newer folks, like I would say this. Like I remember when I first started the acquisition lab, or when I finished my cohort, like there was this wonderful school that I had I don't know if we went under LOI, but like the seller ended up getting cold feet. Like she still owns the business today. I like check in every now and then. But it was a wonderful like school. It would have, and this was like 2 months after I had like finished my cohort, and I was just like, yes, I like this is perfect, you know. But I would have like I've learned so much. I learned so much between that point and the point that I actually bought Reset through tough experiences, right? And I don't know if everyone needs to kind of get like the tough experience in order to get it right, but it is like it is a tricky it is a tricky kind of place to navigate. You know, like people talk about searching for a business. Like they don't really talk about like, oh, like acquiring a business. It's like, no, the search. Like that is that is crazy. Like the search is the crazy part. Like you're in a lot of competition. You have sellers who are incentivized to inflate prices. You're in an auction system, like oftentimes. So like that's like a real disadvantage as a buyer. Um, so it's like I learned a lot over by just like earning my dues. But what I will say is that I think for me, and like don't write this down, but I would say like for me it was important to be aggressive, to move quickly, to like if you see like something like listed, to like try to meet with the broker right away, go through the sim, trust like especially if it's a brokerage that is a good one where like they're not like known for fudging numbers or kind of playing underhanded. It is better to like reach out and form these relationships, talk to people, do a bunch of reps, and if you're gonna put in like a letter IOI or LOI, like move on it. If you're interested in it, move on it because there's a lot of competition, and the longer you wait and the longer you dilly dally, the sooner I feel like the sooner you'll get left behind. So it's like you want to get in the game. You want to get in the game and you want to prove yourself to both the seller and the broker so that you have like either like financial backing or you have some money like in your bank account that like could be used as a down payment, just something that shows that you have the potential to actually close this deal. And there's little small things that you can do to make sure that people understand that you do know that. It's like you have to understand the nuances of of what's going into buying this business, what like the process is going to be like, what are the steps, when the bank is going to be involved, are you going to get investors, are people already like on your investment list, things like that. These are all questions that will come up because what I found is that most sellers for like self-funded searchers like myself, they're going to doubt or be questionable as to whether you're going to be able to actually close on this business in 60 days to 90 days. So it's like you have to be able to prove that like pretty quickly. So like that was my main thing, and I think that's what Walker Dybel had noticed early on was that he was like, oh, okay, you seem like you're aggressive. Like you'll go for it, and like that's probably cost me quite a bit, but it's landed me in a position where I feel like the upside is much larger than like the monies that I lost.
I love the analogy of just getting the game. You just have to get on the field and go through it. We were talking about sports earlier. I would love to be able to see like successful searchers, how many NDAs they signed, how many sims they read through, how many IOIs or LOIs that they went, like the stat sheet, the score sheet.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea, after all those couple of years, what that looks like? I'd be interested to
like I have like
to
some
know what your stat sheet would look like,
Like there's
Oh
a
man.
fantasy football draft for it, right? You're going
Yeah,
up against an opponent, right?
yeah.
And it's scoring
Like,
points for the Sunday
like,
football.
Vic, you know how many businesses Bryan looked at? 100 last week. No, like,
Right.
I don't like. I have it somewhere because I created a few different like kind of Google Sheets, CRMs,
Sure. Yeah.
track where I track so I could remember to like what's happening and who things have kind of worked out with previously. But it was, oh man. Like, I mean, Sims Red, it's just like in the hundreds. Like numbers of like sellers talked to, it's whew, it's so many, and so many different personalities, and like, to be honest with you, one of the things that I felt, and I can't like say this for sure, but one of the things I felt was that at times when I was looking at businesses that were maybe a little bit more blue collar, like I remember there was one business that oh, like I forgot exactly what it did, but like there were a couple of like kind of blue collar businesses, and I got the sense that the owners felt like I was a little bit white collar, like I just got I would get that sense. So like when like it's so important when you are meeting these sellers to try to see if there's like a connection, because like if they have a relatively good business, like they'll be able to choose from a few different folks. So like if you're getting a feeling that maybe like there's a little bit of a consistent theme about like sellers in this space, that maybe I'm not like exactly who they're looking for, it's probably a good idea to maybe pivot to an area where like they do see you as like, oh, like this is a good match. So like for Reset, like when I came into when I came into that initial meeting, like I was in Florida at the time, and I had my initial meeting with the seller, and it was just like we were so similar in so many ways that there was a natural connection. We could speak the same language. He saw me and I saw him, more like figuratively, understanding like the kind of wants and needs. So the questions were deep, and the conversation was free flowing. So yeah, but to answer your question, I don't know exactly how many
Yeah.
but it would be
It'd be up there.
it would be up there. A lot of folks, a lot of folks.
Well, hey, Brian, as we you talked about Reset a little bit, so why don't we allow you to give a little plug for your business on the podcast for people that might be listening that might be interested in becoming a subscriber. So if you want to do a little infomercial, that would be awesome.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. So so here's the thing, like weight loss, and I've been learning this over the last 9 months. It's like weight loss is a very personal thing, and it's something that a lot of folks want to like go through, and like you see it with like the growth of GLP-1 drugs, and or like like the amounts of tummy tucks that people get and things like that. Like people generally can get like have very like deep feelings about like their weight and getting back to their former selves, or what they think is like their former selves. And for Reset, like we've been digging really deep into like what it means. Like what does that mean, and how do we connect with people, not only on the what we do and how we do it, but like emotionally tapping into like what is emotionally going on in their lives. So to condense it a little bit, we're a meal planning app that right now just has like like a bunch of meals that you can get and use what's called like a 5-2 intermittent fasting method, where like you eat normally for 5 days and then you cut your calorie count for 2 days. And what that does is it's essentially supposed to like lower your insulin, like like your like by really cutting your intake in to like 500 calories to like 800 calories. What like weight loss is really tied to insulin, to like your insulin production, which like I can start getting into the science of it, and I've read a bunch of books about like this stuff, and it's really interesting stuff. And what we're doing at Reset is that not only with 5-2, but with different fasting methods, we're using AI and nutritionist and meal planning to help you go on this journey to lose weight and feel good. Like like when you have other companies out there that like tell you that weight loss is about like calories. It's not. It's like that's a factor, but it's not about like calories. It's not about like making sure your portion control is right. It's about eating the right things. and and by like having a really great meal plan where we could set you up for the week, we could set you up for the month, we could set you up for the day, where you're just like continuously resetting. You get a chance, like we understand that life happens, and that like you're gonna want to have like ice cream sometime, or you're gonna have like like this chocolate bar, or do like whatever you gotta do, and that's fine. Like life is life. But like what the important part is that you reset, you recalibrate, and that you understand what your body is actually doing. So in a nutshell, like that's what we do at Reset, and what we're building towards is to have like a really clean metabolic system where you understand your body, and like the AI understands your body and the things that are making you feel tired. If you're going through your day and at 12 o'clock you kind of fall off a cliff, like that is a metabolic signal of something happening in your body. Usually it's like you have like you maybe had like some maybe orange juice or something kind of sugary in the morning. Your blood glucose will go up, your insulin comes in to bring it down, and when that happens, like you have this feeling of like a lot getting sucked out of you. We can like change what you're doing to make sure that these metabolic, like these like ups and downs with your glucose are a lot more linear, so that like you have less of these episodes of feeling not your best, brain fog, not being able to go to sleep, not there's a lot that goes into it. And we're looking to answer all of those questions for you as easily and simply as we can.
See, I absolutely love that. Tom and I have a pretty deep experience in selling medi spas, and you touched on something with the GLP-1s and the TRTs and the hormone therapies. Those therapies are about only good as your diet is, right? Your diet and your exercise. So it's a one big component to that pie that goes into improving the quality of your life. For one, I've used your app, Bryan. Love it. I appreciate all you guys that stuck into that. It's a big help and support. So good. You're doing all the right things. I applaud that.
I thank you for trying it. I implore others to give it a go as well, and reach out to me. I'm Bryan at reset.com with any like questions, thoughts, suggestions. Like we're going through like a kind of brand overhaul and rollout of a lot of new kind of features that are more geared towards what I was saying about the metabolism part. But yeah, like we feel like we're only 1% into this. Like we got a ways to go, and quite a bit to build, and I feel like I have some great people on my team that are helping us get there. So I'm excited about it.
Wonderful. Bryan, I don't have any additional questions for you, but I mean, I can tell you that the journey that we got to experience together was diverse.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to see a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of creativity that went into some things. And, the one thing I think I'll leave everybody with is taxation. when you are a searcher buying a business, the thing to remember is that your seller has taxation. And in a lot of cases, that taxation cascades state lines. And when that happens, the bank needs to be reassured that those are being paid.
Mm-hmm.
And so the bigger your purchase gets and the broader your sales floor is, the more you have to worry about those taxation and post-taxation rules and laws, right? So I know that you kind of had a little of that in your transaction, and you got to experience the sales tax issue.
Yeah. That's part of why it took so long to close, like these taxes. And I honestly think that the seller didn't realize how big the scope was. And once he did, like, it was kind of like, wait, well, like it was more money out of his pocket than he was expecting to be like spending. So like he had some thoughts of like whether he really wanted to go forward with this or not, and I'm happy he did. But yeah, the taxation stuff, like things will come up in your deal, guaranteed. I've heard stories of folks saying that like your deal will die a couple of times, and ideally like it doesn't happen, but I think in just about every deal I've done is like it's very much an ebb and flow. Things are great in the beginning, then something gets uncovered, and it's an up and down. It's a roller coaster, but you can get to the finish line.
Absolutely. Ben, Tom, any additional questions for our guest?
No, I think Brian really summed it up well. I mean, for the buyers out there, you really got to hear a day in the life of someone looking to acquire a business. And, Brian had his challenges. He had a couple fall through, right? Some money that went towards those deals, right? That he didn't get to recover, right? But he stuck with it and found the business that he likes. So I think that's a really great story, and it really tells the tale of what a buyer might go through, uh, and I think that's absolutely valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I could ask you a lot more questions, but for the sake of not having a 3-hour episode, Brian, it was awesome to have you on. Thanks for sharing everything. Congratulations to getting through it. I know it's kind of just the start of the journey, right? You finally acquire one, and now it's like kind of you're starting over in some ways, but it sounds like things have gone well, and keep it up. Definitely excited to hear about the success that's going to continue for you. And yeah, we're here to help streamline the process as much as possible. So folks, don't have to necessarily put in the 2 years, right? Ideally, but if it's the right thing, you got to wait for the right thing. Right. So,
Well,
appreciate your time, sir.
It was my pleasure, and I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. So we'd like to thank everybody for listening today. Episode 8, buyer interview with Bryan Cartwright from Reset Technologies. I'd also like to put a secondary shout out to our sponsors, Strategic Wealth Partners. You can find them at stratwealth.com. Again, stratwealth.com. This episode of our podcast will be hosted on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Next month's episode, we'll be covering the spooky turns of an SBA and what can go wrong in a deal, to kind of grow and piggyback on what Brian was saying. So really excited for that. And I definitely want to put a plug out for November's podcast, and that is a Remember Your Diet. That's going to be all about the professional lives of brokers, bankers, lawyers, CPAs, going into work, working 12-hour days. How do you stay healthy in this world that we live in? Right? When a world full of McDonald's and fast food, how do you plan your weeks out? How do you prep your meals? How do you make smart decisions to remain healthy so you can continue to serve your clients? So with that, thanks everybody for listening. We'll be live next month. Have a great day.